Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast with Bryce Johnson. It's a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. Enjoy inspiring conversations and thought-provoking interviews. You'll hear stories from people that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you. Now, from the Unpacking It studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, uniting sports fans everywhere, here is Bryce Johnson.
And joining us now is Matt Schick, broadcaster for ESPN, ESPN Radio, and SiriusXM. He has been at ESPN since 2012 and hosts numerous shows along with doing play-by-play as well. He graduated from the University of Colorado and got his career started in Denver before moving on to Nebraska and then ESPN. He was born and raised in Rochester, New York, and now lives in Charlotte, North Carolina with his wife and 4 kids. Matt, so great to have you on Unpacking It today. How are you?
Bryce, that is, I already know you are a great researcher, and all of that, I can fact check all of that very quickly, and all of that was accurate, according to my sources. Everything you said was accurate. It's great to be on with you.
That's awesome. Well, actually, I lived in Rochester, New York as a young kid before moving to Charlotte.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was in Fairport, New York.
Yeah, me too.
And, my mom's family is from, she was born in Buffalo. My dad was born in Queens. We settled in Fairport. My mom had a lot of family around there. So Fairport High School. I'm a former Red Raider. I moved right before my senior year of high school.
That is awesome. I moved at the age of 5, but still have fond memories and especially the cold winters. That's for sure. So
yes. It snows there. It stays there for 6 months. Here in Charlotte, a tad better, where you can actually go outside with 4 kids in the month of January. So it's good.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned those 4 kids, and so I understand that you're about to go on vacation with the family. So what does that look like, and what's it like going on vacation with 4 young kids?
Yeah, you'll be shocked to know we don't get out much. When you got 4 kids ages 3 to 8, vacations for me are going to work. So I don't take a lot of vacation. I just go to work. And those are kind of the times away. When we go to the neighborhood pool, we feel like we've accomplished something. Like, what'd you do today? Oh, I went and got the mail at the mailbox. Oh, great. That's the big accomplishment. But we are headed to, we got family in Colorado, my mom, my dad, brother and sister and their 2 kids. And we're going out to Colorado. We're going to take a 3.5-hour flight. So we are at this time panicking of, okay, what entertainment do they have on the flight? I even called the airline to ask them, do you have seat back entertainment? Like, this is what happens. Like when you don't have kids, you're just whatever they got. I'm good. I'll bring a book. No, we need to cover all of our bases. So we got our iPads loaded up. We got our Netflix movies downloaded, uploaded, whatever you call it. And we're ready to go. And then, after about a week there in Colorado, we're going to rent a car and drive 8 hours to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Wow.
To visit my wife's side of the family. We're looking forward to it. So it's a couple of family reunions. We don't burn our vacations all the time with family reunions, but every couple of years we'll get together and do that. So it'll be good. I'm already praying for the people in row 5 and row 7 as we have the entire row 6 for us. So Godspeed to those in 5 and 7.
Wow. Yeah, you are brave, flying across the country with 4 young kids. But that sounds great, and hope you have an awesome time. Matt Schick, our guest right now on Unpacking It. And so as I even read your bio and know that you are involved with different aspects at ESPN. So you host shows, you do some play-by-play, you host different types of shows and interact with different analysts. So of all those different kind of media platforms, what is your favorite aspect of each of those?
Well, I think it's all encompassing in that just being able to work with and meet so many different people. And people that, you watched on TV either growing up or before I got into the business, and now I get to work with some of those people and call them colleagues and ask for advice. And the fact that everyone's very supportive of everybody. And I can, when I'm getting into play-by-play, we had some layoffs a couple of years ago, and my job changed from more of a studio host to, all right, you'll do some studio, but now you're going to do a lot more play-by-play. So I went from calling maybe 1 or 2 play-by-play events a year to 25
wow.
to 30 events a year. And it almost happened overnight. And so to be able to, text or email or call different play-by-play voices at ESPN and have them at my disposal, and everyone's looking out for everybody else, those relationships are really cool. I love doing games. I love doing play-by-play of games. I love the prep work that goes into it. The prep work is the toughest part, and then the game starts, and there you go. And those are, getting the energy from the environment and being around the fans, something you don't get when you're kind of in a sterile studio. I love doing the selection shows and unveiling brackets of, we just had the college baseball selection show, and it's cool to know that you're unveiling the bracket, and they're out in the country are different campuses that are holding watch parties and watching and waiting for you to mention their name. National Signing Day is cool to watch kids and interview kids moments after, right as they're announcing where they're going to go for the next 3 or 4 years of school. So I've gotten to do a lot of different creative things, and that's the beauty of ESPN is that if you treat people well and you're competent enough, they'll let you do what you want to do, or at least give you a shot. And I've been able to do that.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, so was ESPN always the dream job? And then ultimately, how did you end up there?
Growing up, I wanted to be a doctor, and then quickly realized the debt and the schooling. And so those two things said, you know what, let's try something else. And I was 7, 8 years old, 9 years old as SportsCenter started to become a big deal. 10 years old, 11, I can remember sitting there and watching Dan Patrick, Keith Olbermann, and Craig Kilborn, Brett Haber, Larry Beal, all these guys, Kenny Mayne, and that was when SportsCenter was on, once a day. And I remember watching, going, well, I love sports, I'm competent at sports, but I recognized very early, I was, academically, I wasn't the most brilliant kid, but I had enough street smarts to realize very early at the age of 10, 11, or 12 that I wasn't going to play professionally or get a scholarship to play. No one was going to compensate me for my athletic endeavors. And so I decided very early that that's what I wanted to do. I got an older sister, a younger brother, and my parents, whenever they would go out, and we were old enough to watch ourselves, my sister being a couple years older, they would go out on a date night, and when they came home, we would have a mock newscast filmed with our camcorder for my parents to watch. And I was always a co-anchor with my brother or sister. Then we do some skits and creative things. And we didn't have editing equipment, so we had to nail it the first time. And when they would come home, we'd say, okay, we'd pop in the VHS tape, say, here we go. And I would just watch their reaction. And just very early, I knew that I wanted to do TV. I wanted to do sports. And to be able to get to this level is something that is never lost on me. And I think the steps along the way, I'm so glad the journey took as long as it did. I'll put it that way, because you just appreciate every little step.
Oh, that's cool. No, unpack that a little bit more. Why you're thankful that it took the direction and the amount of time that it did.
I can remember being in college and doing an internship at Channel 9 KUSA in Denver. I would do newscasts at the University of Colorado, and then I would bring them to my internship and show them to the sports producers. And I remember going, hey, as soon as they see this, they're going to want to hire me because I'm really good. Right? We all have it. My mom thinks I'm Bob Costas at the age of 17. Like things are going to be great. And I remember showing it, and I kind of nod their head. You're in your own little bubble, right? You're only comparing yourself to the kids in your journalism class at Colorado. And I remember thinking, gosh, I could start here. I could start in Denver, and here we go. And you realize that, you have these plans, man plans and God laughs, right? Like you think you have the best idea. And then you realize once you get into the starter market that, okay, this is a lot more challenging than I thought. And then when you start at a base level, I started at a station in central Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska. Population of the town is 30,000. And I start there, and I'm making mistakes. I'm screwing up. I'm butchering on camera things. I'm watching my newscasts or sportscasts every single night. And it's just these, the journey along the way of being able to mess up. And thank God that it wasn't YouTube back then. Social media was didn't even exist back then. So you're able to screw up and be hidden. And then by the time you're ready, then you're more prepared. but the journey, the relationships you have, and I can remember at the ABC affiliate in central Nebraska, KHGI, NTV, where you're there with a bunch of kids your age, 21, 22, 23, 24 years old, who are all single. You're all trying to get to that next step, and you're all working together. You're not competing against each other. You're competing with each other. And it made you better. And then you take the next step. And I went to Omaha after that. You know, I was a sports director at the Central Nebraska station at the age of 22, I think, 23 years old. And then I go to Omaha, and now I'm back as a weekend sports anchor, and I'm looking up to this 35, 40-year-old sports director, and I'm trying, you know, just proving yourself again and again to new audiences, new people. And I just think, you know, there are people who go straight from college to, hey, now I'm going to start in market number 15, or I'm going to intern there, and now they're going to hire me. You're just not allowed to screw up as much. And I think the journey has made me appreciate it, where I get to ESPN and I look in the rear view and go, that was a long journey, but it makes me appreciate where I am. And there are some people who get to a level and they don't, because the journey was so quick, and they don't, you know, it's like a guy going straight from high school to the majors. Yeah. That sense of entitlement can set in. But if you go to A-ball, if you go to AA, if you go to AAA, if you're on long bus rides, if you're helping clean up the locker room, if you're helping mow the grass in the outfield, those things help you appreciate every step you've been, and that's kind of where I'm at.
That's so cool, and it translates to other areas of life too. Whether you're waiting to get married or waiting to get pregnant or things like that, then you appreciate it a little bit more when you've gone through that journey beforehand. We're talking with Matt Schick, ESPN broadcaster, joining us right here on Unpacking It. And so now that you've spent so much time working in sports media, how has it changed your sports fandom and how you view sports at this point?
It has, I won't sugarcoat it. Working at ESPN and covering sports for as long as I have, it can do one of two things to you, and there's really no in between. It can accentuate your fandom that much more because you're in it every day, or it can kill it and put it in the back burner. And that's what's happened to me, where I used to live and die with the Buffalo Bills growing up, right? I mean, every game, every playoff game, every Super Bowl, which there were 4 in a row, by the way, which didn't go well.
I've heard.
These would be, do some research. It wasn't very good. You know, I valued those outcomes so much. And University of Colorado, you know, when they would lose a big game, that would crush me, you know, whether it was a student or shortly after school. And then the longer you're in it, especially being married and now having kids, I would much rather my kid get a base hit in a game than my favorite team win a championship. You know, so I'm able to step back, and I appreciate all of our fans because they help me pay my bills, right? I mean, we're all employed at ESPN because people are savage and love their sports, and that's great. But being around it so much has almost forced me to step back and go, as Seinfeld used to say, I'm rooting for laundry, right? I'm rooting for this color of uniform, and the outcome of this 18 to 22 to 35, whatever year old, how they do in their game is defining how happy I am, or how, you know, my enjoyment of life, or it's going to impact me. It does to some degree if I'm really invested, but I'm very detached. And what that has allowed me to do is become really objective about even my favorite teams growing up. And so there are pros and cons to it. I do miss being the big diehard fan that I used to be, but it allows me to focus on things that are much more important. And that starts with my family. And there are a lot of people like me, so I'm certainly not an outlier. But it's certainly changed my outlook on sports, where I'm invested in it because I need to be, because I need to know what's going on. But emotionally, it's not going to impact me, and I think that's a good spot to be.
Wow, no, really interesting. Matt Schick, our guest right now on Unpacking It. He's a broadcaster for ESPN, ESPN Radio, and SiriusXM. And so love hearing about your career and how you ended up at ESPN, but would also love to hear a little bit about your faith journey. And I'll just ask, when did you decide to follow Jesus, and what was that process like for you to get to that point?
I was raised Catholic by my parents and had a great upbringing in that regard. Went to church every week and, tried to get involved with youth groups every now and then. Growing up, it felt very, I don't know if legalistic is the right term, because I think can be unfair and can be used the wrong way, but it didn't feel as tangible to me. And then once I got to college, I got involved with a campus ministry called Campus Crusade for Christ.
Oh, yeah.
And I started being around kids that kind of shared my values. They were more, it was a diverse group of people, but we had core values that we shared. And I think I quickly learned that, once you have that Christ-centeredness, which I always believed I had, but I probably it didn't really become real to me until college. Once you have that Christ-centeredness, everything else, that filters out into everything else and spills into every other area of your life. And so in college is really started to take off for me. And some of my best friends are those who I met through that campus ministry.
That's awesome.
And in fact, it came at a time where I was really struggling in college, trying to stay on the straight and narrow, but also just trying to have friends that didn't force me to compromise who I was or who I wanted to be. And so that culture shock at Colorado in college was tough, because we had just moved from New York to Colorado the year prior for my senior year of high school. So I had 2 consecutive years of just new people and new environments and just trying to find my identity. So anyway, in school, that became a big deal. And then eventually, a couple of years later, it was after my junior year of college, I went on a summer missions trip, a summer project to San Diego, where we had to raise a couple of grand, and I spent 9 weeks in San Diego, and I met my wife out there. And she was at St. Cloud State at the time, and she came out with a couple of her. We had 95 college kids from all over the country that met in San Diego, and we did 9 weeks together. Some Bible studies and learning how to use your job as a ministry opportunity, not just a job to make money, but to meet both ends. And so we were able to do that. We evangelized and tried to share the gospel on the beach, which was great, because you could go up to people and talk, and they couldn't say we were too busy. You're on the beach. So it was good. That taught me about sharing the gospel, sharing the good news, discipleship, evangelism, all those things that Jesus preached. And so that's where that really took flight. And then that spilled over into getting into the business and treating people certain ways. And so there wasn't really that one light bulb moment. It's been a gradual deal for me, but it really started in college.
Oh, that's so cool. I did Campus Crusade as well up at App State, so love that ministry and had a great impact on me as well. Matt Schick, our guest right now on Unpacking It. He's a broadcaster for ESPN. And so how does your faith affect how you view your job and even making sure that your job doesn't become your identity?
It's a daily challenge. That is the biggest struggle. And I think, you can call yourself a Christian, and that means that what you're doing is not saying you're perfect. You're admitting you're imperfect.
That's right. And
that you need help. And that is a daily struggle for me. My smartphone makes me dumb because I am, I feel like, and sometimes I use it as an excuse, but I try to know everything that's going on because I host a weekly, radio show on ESPN Radio, or I'm hosting this college football show, so I need to know what these coaches are saying. So I'm listening to podcasts and all this, and I am so full of information about sports. But that can, when I'm at home, and I'm sorry, I need to check Twitter to see what this writer is writing about because I got the show in 2 days. It is a daily challenge for me to make sure that I'm limiting that and focusing on the things that are important. Because I'm great at the worldview perspective, but sometimes it's that it's that minutia, day by day, minute by minute, that you can get caught up in the things that aren't as important. So I think my perspective is good, but it's a daily challenge to make sure that I am not, want to be in the world but not of it. And I think, you become what you're around. And so, admittedly, I need to do a better job of that. I think it's, without the anchor of Christ, I would get caught up a lot more in what the world thinks of me, or what people are saying about me, or, what they tweeted me or post about me, because social media can be a big wormhole where you start feeling worse about yourself. I think at the very least, what my faith has allowed is that I don't care what other people, especially those that I don't know, think about me, because I know what God, what Christ, and what my family think about me. And, we talk about leaving a legacy. The legacy that I leave with my kids and family and starting with my faith is so much more important than any social media imprint, retweet, funny thing I say on the radio could have. Because, if I were to die tomorrow, social media, Twitter, they might, have a hashtag that is the 30th biggest trend in the States for like 3 seconds. And then they will quickly go about their day and go on to the next thing. But my family and my kids will feel that impact for generations. And so that's forced me and allowed me to focus on the things that are important. And whether it's getting into the Word or getting into daily prayer, and having weekly, daily conversations, but weekly breakfast dates with my kids, and each one of them to kind of impress upon them gospel-centeredness, Christ-centeredness. So those are things. I think the anchor of life centered on faith has just allowed me to be a better dad and a better husband, and biblically impressing that upon my kids has been great.
Oh, so awesome to hear. Matt Schick, our guest right now on Unpacking It, broadcaster for ESPN. And speaking of Twitter, in your bio, you've got Matthew 6:33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Why that verse, and how'd you land on that one to add to your Twitter bio?
Yeah, that one has been with me since college, and it's, when we think about things that are important, I remember a quote from Tom Brady, and this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. This is after he'd won a couple of Super Bowls, I think. And it was an interview that he did where he admitted, he goes, I won X amount of Super Bowls, but there's still something missing. There's still something else. And I remember watching that going, it doesn't matter how much you win, how much money you make, because there's always going to be something more that you're missing. Some of the people who make the most money are the most unhappy people. And so that verse is, let's start with this. Let's start with Christ. Let's start with faith. Because once you have that, then whatever else you're seeking, you will either change what you're seeking, you will change what you're pursuing for pleasure, or God will bless you with certain aspects of that. But, the Bible is full of stories of people who have nothing but had Christ. And I always wonder, how can those people be happy? How can people who have nothing but Christ be happy? And then you realize those who have everything but Christ are desperate and desperate for something else, because it doesn't fill the void. And so seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. I love the all these things, because all these things doesn't necessarily mean nice house, money, fame, fortune, all these. It's all these things, the things you need, and the things that God knows you need. And rarely is that a material good.
That's right.
And so that to me is seek God first, go for that first, because if you don't go for that first, it's misplaced pursuits. Because you don't need everything to have everything, because everything is Christ. And so I love that verse. There's many others that I could pick, but that's one that stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, and I appreciate your perspective and just that good word, even just unpacking that verse. That was awesome to hear. And Matt, as we wrap things up, man, I could talk to you all day. But I've kind of been asking this question as we wrap things up for the last few months because my wife is due with our first child in August.
That's awesome.
And so I got to ask you, as a father of 4, what advice do you have for a first-time dad?
Oh, wow. Trying to reflect on our first child. So we had 4 kids, 4 kids under 5.
Oof.
For about 2 months, and then our oldest turned 5. I will say that as you have more kids, the first kid, you're like, he's in a bubble. We're never letting him out of the house for the first 5 years. And then by the time you get to kid 4, it's, is he playing out in traffic? He'll be fine. It's like your perspective certainly changes. But for the first one, there are a few things. One, make sure you're doing as much as you can to share the responsibilities with your wife, because although she might be breastfeeding, getting up in the middle of the night and all that, make sure you're doing whatever you can to assist in that, because that will go a long way for your marriage. The other things are very trivial, yet can go a long way. Don't do anything. You have to always play the long game. Don't do anything consistently that you aren't going to do for the next 2 or 3 years. Specifically, allowing your children to sleep in your bed with you. Don't do that. I just met with someone the other day who said, yeah, my daughter slept in my bed for the first 7 years of her life. Don't ever do that. Our children never slept in our bed. That's a sacred spot. That's our place. Please, children, you have your own place. That is one thing. The other, you need to learn the beauty of the dream feed, which is when the baby is swaddled, before you go to bed, as the baby, you've got that bottle of milk or whatever it is, breast milk that has been pumped. Dad, that is your time. Wake the child up. Well, you're not even waking. 11:30 at night, that baby is swaddled. Feed that baby. That baby won't wake up, but it will eat. He or she will eat, and then that'll buy you 3 or 4 more hours of sleep. You will learn very quickly that your happiness in life is directly correlated to the sleep habits of your child. And so make sure that those sleep habits, sleep training, all of those things come as soon as possible, because otherwise your first child will be your last, because you will never, ever want to do it again. So, but I will say, it is the greatest trade-off in the history of life, in that you give up so much. You give up a lot of your social life. You give up a lot of your freedom, but you gain so much more. And that this child that you just met, you would fall in front of traffic for that child to bring it back full circle. So it's the greatest blessing. It's the greatest miracle. And you start thinking about Bible stories as soon as you see that child. Go, oh my goodness, Abraham and going to the mountain. My goodness, this is really powerful. And think about God giving up His only Son for you. I would never do that for anyone. So it's the perspective that you gain the moment that child is born is really incredible. And so, best of luck and prayers to you, because it is a journey that it's so life changing. You're never ready for it. It's like marriage, right? You'd never get married if you had to be ready to get married, and you'd never have a child if you had to be ready.
That's right.
The moment you leave that hospital, you will be shocked that they allow you to take that child home by yourself. You will drive 25 and a 55 for that child, and it's great. So blessings to you, prayers to you, and that's congratulations in advance. That's great.
Oh, that's excellent. No, I appreciate that. Really thoughtful advice from Matt Schick. And Matt, really appreciate you joining us here on Unpacking It today. Just love your heart and all that you shared with us today, and we'll definitely have to do this again.
Anytime. Look, really enjoyed it, and look forward to the next time. Thanks, Bryce.
Awesome. Thanks so much. There's Matt Schick joining us here on Unpacking It.
For more information about the show, our events, and other resources, visit unpackinit.com. That's unpackinit.com. We hope you are encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. To support our show and Unpacking It Ministries with a financial gift, visit unpackinit.com/donate. We look forward to unpacking sports, faith, and life with you again next week.